And we are live. Welcome back. This is episode number 46 of Calibrated with Scott. I'm Scott, of course. I really appreciate everybody who's been subscribing. We just reached 9,000 right before we started this video, so that's a big accomplishment. Soon 10,000. That'll be the goal that I had for this summer, and I've already almost made it. So I really appreciate you guys. If you don't mind liking and subscribing, it always, it's the easiest way you can help me out. But without further ado, let's get into it. Today I have joining me one of my good friends for a long time throughout this SMO, Alex. Alex, how are you doing today?
Hello, Scott. I'm doing well, thank you. What should we talk about today? We have plenty of topics. We have an offensive ongoing, going on its, third week at this point, and well, heaven forbid they actually try something intelligent for once, but
Yeah.
take it away.
Yeah, so I think the main topic that we'll discuss today is the counteroffensive. We're into day number D plus 14 now. I think it's been 2 weeks officially. Started on the 6th and it's now the 18th. So, or is that D plus 12? Did it start on the 4th or the 6th? I think it started on the 6th when the dam blew. Or did
I
it
think
start?
some people count it from the fourth, which is when sort of they really intensified sort of the preparations for it.
Yeah, it's hard to know when the probing stopped and the offensive officially began because it's all kind of looked like probing since the start. But yeah, there just really hasn't been the progress that I think anybody, unless you're talking about some of the more ridiculous pro-Russian accounts out there, nobody was really making this claim that the Ukrainians weren't going to move anywhere. I thought that they would have at least reached the first line of defense. That's when they were going to start having issues, and then they would have to really pour it on there. But so far, they haven't even really been able to make it, more than 3 kilometers away from their starting positions without encountering intense opposition from both Russian forces and from minefields, which has been, I think, the major cause of a lot of the losses recently. Did you think that this whole thing was going to go this poorly? Because, I sure as hell didn't.
I was suspecting, well, obviously anything we thought of came before the Kakhovka Dam incident.
Yeah.
Of course, a gross act of terrorism by the state of Ukraine. But I think we were really expecting to see something there, perhaps a more ambitious amphibious crossing, more Ukrainians. That would have been probably the worst losses they'd taken on a single day would have been during those crossings.
Yeah.
But no, I was expecting perhaps to see them sort of getting stuck on the dragon's teeth around now. I wasn't expecting this. They've got a single 3 kilometer salient into our lines, and
Yeah.
that's it. Like that's all they have to show for this is a tiny movement in the gray zone. They're 2 dozen kilometers from the actual first line, and all they have to show for it is 10,000 dead men and like 100 odd tanks.
Yeah. It the armor losses have been so significant. I think that that's pretty much the main focus of this whole, at least in the information space, is the number of armored vehicles that are being lost. We've seen the Ka-52 attack helicopter really start to shine. For a long time, it was just being used as a ballistic unguided missile launcher that would lean back and lob some rockets. And now we're really starting to see it perform the way that it was meant to perform at a decent range outside of manpad range, and I feel like it's finally performing as it should have. It is officially now an Alligator, lying in wait for these mostly Max Pros, which stand at like 12 feet tall for some reason. Do you think that the success of the Ka-52 has come from a doctrinal switch, or do you think that it is the result of degrading air defense and lack of man-portable air defense?
Well, actually, on the topic of man-portable air defense, I will say that the Ka-52 armed with either the Ataka or Vichu, ATGMs, it can comfortably sit well outside of manpad range and still rain its missiles down entirely untouched.
Yeah.
Furthermore, NATO frontline air defense, the IRIS and NASAMS, both use IR-seeking air-to-air missiles as the base of their complex. The Ka-52 is equipped with the Vitebsk IR countermeasure complex, which is fully capable of rendering IR missiles largely ineffective against it. So the composition of Ukraine's air defenses and the lack of Soviet-era Tor and Buk short-range air defense systems means that the Ka-52s can hunt these large tank sort of convoys or tank attacks relatively untouched. And these Max Pro, etc. vehicles, using the ATGMs on them is frankly overkill. You would be just as happy shredding them out with the autocannon.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I mean, it has been a striking increase in the number of videos that we're seeing coming out. And I you can put it on the fact that, the Ukrainians are finally coming at the Russians so that, these helicopters will just lie in wait, and then as the convoys approach, they'll start picking them off one by one. But it seems as though this threat is not even being considered by the AFU in these assaults. It feels like it's just being wildly ignored. We're seeing claims of, 2Ka-52s being shot down like every day of this offensive so far by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, which is just not true. I mean, I've yet to see a single piece of evidence. The helicopters are not operating any differently than they have the entire time. You think if you start taking losses like that, you'd change up what you're doing, and we're just not seeing that. So also, the Mi-28 has made quite the comeback. It has been even more ineffectual, I think, this conflict than the Ka-52. So it's good to see both of those weapon systems now being utilized to their fullest, I think. I wanted to get into the most recent offensive actions that took place around Orikhiv, or Orkhov, and how they, the one I'm talking about, right? Where we had the Leopard driving into the back of the burning Bradley to clear it, or they couldn't see it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, absolutely. A rather
Yeah.
striking
So
video from
with
yesterday's
with
action.
with that set of videos, I think there was like 4 or 6 of them, and I'm kind of extending out this question right now because I'm going to put them in here while we're talking. Do you think that I'm at a loss for words, almost trying to ask this question. What's going on? What's the plan? Is there no plan? Is NATO in charge? Is this a NATO failure? Is this a Ukrainian failure, not listening to NATO planning? What do you think is going on? I'm very curious.
I think what we're seeing is a combined breakdown, a sort of a multiple systems failure, if you will,
Yeah.
a coalescence point of shit, quite frankly. The NATO high command have drunk their own Kool-Aid for far too long. The Ukrainians have drunk the NATO Kool-Aid for far too long, and have sort of started believing their own lies, Goebbels style. Um, Nobody really knows just how much more the Russian military-industrial complex produces. We're seeing, vague numbers of, 3 times higher and 10 times higher. We never knew the baseline. So God knows just how much we produce of everything, of munitions. The men on the front line have unlimited jurisdiction to fire as much ammo as they could possibly want in order to destroy every target. I don't know if there's any overcoming this. It's complete doctrinal failure for NATO. Their entire sort of Guderian-based blitzkrieg style, A-10s screaming over the top of your Abrams columns, freedom and oil and whatever. That's done. They've run into a fortified gun line that they cannot hope to overcome against an opponent that has crafted these Lancet drones, of which we saw like a set of 11 videos yesterday, absolutely decimated convoy. I don't know where one goes from this. We'll see the challengers brought in soon. they'll be destroyed just as easily as anything else. And that'll be, well, what do they have left? The
I,
North,
I
the Korean K2.
yeah.
Good heavens, that thing can't stop a BMP from the side.
I mean, what are they?
Um,
They're talking about bringing in M60s with new turrets from
oh,
Turkey.
they'll be thrashed,
Yeah,
thrashed the moment they get them.
what I don't know how you actually pronounce it. The Israeli tank, the
Oh, the Merkava.
Makava. Yeah, they're talking about
Yeah,
bringing
the
in the
Merkava,
Makava
the
one, which is
two, two,
I
two.
heard they
The
I heard they were
the
talking
one is
about
pretty
both.
good. I'd say the one is a pretty solid armored vehicle. The Merkava 2 is the second shittest tank of all time, in my personal opinion.
Yeah,
But
it's and I did see a
it's
lot of
pretty
people
grim.
saying that's it's just going to perform horribly if it is introduced into the battlefield.
It'll go terribly, and we know it'll go terribly because they don't have crews for these tanks. They don't have like experience. They don't have experienced loaders. They're so used to the Soviet autoloader thing,
Yeah.
they'll never be able to match ostensibly what an expert loader's rate is. And we'll be seeing, ostensibly, oh, the autoloader is so slow on Russian tanks. They can't fire as quickly immediately in an engagement as our loaders can. Whatever. The whole American copium.
Yeah.
We'll see that non-existent in this conflict because the loaders are inexperienced. They don't know how to handle these shells, and well, the Russian autoloader is made of iron and therefore cannot break under pressure.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think
it'll be a
okay, go ahead.
massacre.
Go ahead.
That's yeah. All I was going to say is it's going to be an absolute massacre.
Yeah. I think that's what we're seeing with I mean, just with the equipment that's brought in now. We're seeing the AMX-10, the Leopard, the Bradley, and none of these vehicles are being utilized in the way that they're meant to be utilized. First off, you don't have air support. You're lacking in artillery support. You're lacking in deep strike. All of these weapon systems are meant to be a part of a package. And Ukraine is now the most diversified military in the world, and that is not really a good thing. It means that your training is all over the place. You have to train for a million different systems. You have to have logistics lines set up for all of these different systems. They have something like 13 separate tank models that they're operating currently. That is a nightmare. That means, I mean, that is not what you want. You want to have 2 or 3 tank models that you rely on heavily the most, and then you simplify all the logistics around that. The Russians have the T-72, the T-80, and the T-90, and that's what they're using primarily. They also have the T-55, but those are used as guns basically. So they have a much more simplified battle plan, and I think that is really starting to show on the battlefield. These Bradleys and Leopards that are being destroyed or damaged and then recovered, they have to go back to Poland or Germany to get fixed, and that's just a very, very, very time intensive logistics line, which kills offensive operations. I did want to get into it with you about the brigades that have been employed in this assault. I think we've seen the 31st or the 37th Marine Brigade being used, and then also the 47th Brigade, which was the Leopard Bradley Brigade. And we've seen them take some serious attrition. There's this ongoing kind of cope within the pro-Ukrainian information space where they're saying that the offensive hasn't started. It hasn't even begun. I think anybody with 2 eyes can kind of see that that's not true. But specifically, do you think that the offensive has started earnestly, and do you think that it has anywhere to go from here?
I mean, they can always try and apply pressure from all sides simultaneously and get smashed on more directions. But honestly, the only thing they can do is introduce more reserves into the Zaporozhye direction, attack in more places with more men, see just how many guns we have ready for them. Other alternatives, they could obviously try some sort of shenanigans across the border into Russia.
Yeah.
Though they this time they will get thrashed properly.
Yeah.
Honestly, it seems to just this seems to be to me the beginning of the end.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to
Um,
really be a good direction for them to take this outside of stepping back. You're just going to continue to degrade your military, and people don't think about this, but offensive operations are pretty time and energy intensive. So for the AFU, their other fronts are going to start suffering because of the attention that they're paying to this offensive. And if the offensive doesn't start yielding results soon, they could definitely be looking at, you know, like where do they go? Where could they possibly exert force to help benefit the situation? And I think that the only option that they have is to go full bore for the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, and that minimalist goal will be what they use to make the offensive seem like a success. Do you agree that that is probably the primary target now? I don't see them even getting close to Tokmak or Melitopol. I mean, this showing has been horrific. The amount of casualties that would be sustained in those operations would basically mean the end of the SMO. So, do you see the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant as being a primary objective now, or where else would you see them going?
I would say that it's probably the primary target. I honestly don't think they can even make it there.
Yeah.
I think that the bed of the Dnieper River through Kakhovka, it will be their grave if they try it. Honestly, I cannot fathom a way to get anything heavier than I actually think men would probably sink into the mud. I honestly don't know how they do it. It boggles the mind. They have nothing left to do. We will see the most desperate attempts at offensive. Yes, it at times they might even move forward, but this is a spiral at this point, and it's only going down.
Do you, how do you think the West responds to this failure? How do you think the Ukrainian government responds to this failure? I mean, you can answer these one at a time, obviously. How do you think the Ukrainian people respond to this failure? And then how do you think the Russian Federation tries to capitalize on this failure if it does end up being a failure?
So if we start with one, so what was the first one?
The West, how will the West respond to this failure?
The Americans have played the blame game. The Europeans didn't give enough. They should have given these tanks. We could have had Leclerc's. The F-16s didn't come soon enough. Whatever. Give them ATACMS. What they'll probably get those anyway. It's on the
Yeah.
next, you know, spendy bill. But yeah, the West will play the blame game. No one's going to accept responsibility for it, and they might even try to give Ukraine more things. Though I think the public reaction may be a tad different this time.
Yeah, just there's
Um,
been no progress. So I completely agree with
None.
that's how the West will respond. And now it was the Ukrainian government.
Yes, the Ukrainian government. Um, I think they might pretend this never happened. We'll see probing attack. We tried this. We made great success in this village. Whatever. But I don't think the Ukrainians will actually accept that this happened. I
Yeah.
think they'll try their hardest to memory hole it. Yeah, as far as the Ukrainian government's concerned, that is the fate of this offensive.
I mean, they just did the same thing with Bakhmut. So that is on par with their their messaging. Do you think that the Ukrainian people will accept that? Because and I guess more the pro-Ukrainian information space.
I think the Ukrainian people are a lot more depressed than the pro-Ukrainian information space.
Yeah.
The mobilization squads in Ukraine, they're getting more brutal. They shoot in the air to warn off wives and so on at this point. For the people in Ukraine, this has become horrid. Anything along the Dnieper doesn't have water anymore.
Yeah.
It's yeah, to them, it's a unfathomably miserable existence.
Yeah.
The pro-Ukrainian information space, will go with the Ukrainian government line. They'll try and memory hole it. What offensive? Nothing happened. Those leopards, Russian propaganda. It never happened. You know, the ones they're displaying in Patriot Park, it was the only two that they destroyed. They won't show any more because we might have done ballistic tests on them or something. They won't show any more means they never broke any more. It'll be the most horrid of things. And the final one, I believe, was how will we capitalize on this? Um, I think we might see, obviously, we'll see a general movement forward. I think we'll see small skirmishes and, you know, the usual artillery beginning along most of the front line. As far as I'm concerned, the Odessa Transnistria land bridge question is already done. That's guaranteed. So is Kharkov.
Yeah.
The question is where exactly the sanitary zone will go. Will it be past Kiev, or will it be along the Dnieper River? If so, we'll have this tiny rump Ukraine left, with Poland and Hungary on one side. Or if the alternative was to come and it was decided that no Ukraine should be left, we'd have a DMZ passing through Zhytomyr and Khmelnytsky. Everything up to there would be Russian, Kiev included, Zhytomyr, etc. And then you'd only have the Polish bits, and then you'd have Poland on the other side of this DMZ. And that would be perhaps the least pleasant solution to the Ukrainian people.
The least pleasant solution to the Ukrainian people, but a solution I think right now is better than what has currently been going on and what had been going on for 8 years prior to the SMO. Once
Exactly.
this issue is solved, you know, as long as it does get solved, you know, resolutely, then I think that that's probably going to benefit the Ukrainian people far more than anything that they could have hoped for out of their own victory. I don't think that that would have benefited them in any way. It just wouldn't. So, um, just for our audience, for my audience, I guess, um, can you explain, if you wanted to, whatever extent you want to, why you use the I guess point of view of we when we're talking about the Russian military and the Russian government, because you know I'm not directly affiliated, so I don't say we when I'm talking about these things because I have nothing to do with it. And if you feel comfortable, do you mind telling the audience what you do, or you know where you're at?
I mean, the simplest explanation for this is I am Russian. I've lived in Russia most of my life. I was born in Russia. I will probably die here. It's the we thing is as simple as that. You know, the only point of view for me is the Russian one.
Okay.
It's only that simple. It's you know it's the Western media is filled with these sort of pro-Western fanatics and Russian liberals. Um, it's always nice to bring a different viewpoint.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree, and I appreciate how I guess candid you are when it comes to this sort of stuff, because you know, some people you talk to, it's just it feels like you're just talking to a propaganda outlet, and that's not how I've ever felt with you. And you definitely know your stuff when it comes to military jargon and lingo. So you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, and I appreciate you coming on. I really do. I just thought about that midway through. I was like, I have a lot of new people on here that have never heard you talk. Alex, I've known Alex almost the entire SMO, right? I think we met in like July or August of last year.
Oh no, it was earlier than that.
Was it
Sort of May of 22, I think.
May of 22? So over a year now. That's pretty
Yes,
crazy.
absolutely.
That's so crazy
We've
when you
we've
think
seen
about
we've
it.
seen some highs and some lows, and boy have we seen the sort of the fate of modern warfare written before our very eyes.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's you know, you play War Thunder for a long time and then you get to see it in real life, and it's definitely different, but it's interesting. If anybody was curious, that is one of the ways that me and Alex actually became good friends, was on War Thunder. So, video games bringing the boys together. I haven't played probably in over 9 months though, so it's been a while. I think that's where I'm gonna wrap it up right here for today. Alex, was there anything else you wanted to add before we get out of here?
No, I think that's all from me.
Yeah, I think we
Thanks for having me on.
yeah, this was a nice little bro chat. Next time, hopefully KSB and Brian can join us. Not that I don't enjoy talking to you one on one, but the bro chats are always fun. So we should do that next time. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Have a good day.